The massive survey ship Eternal Dawn drifted through the empty space between stars, its quantum engines humming quietly as it searched for resources to claim for the Galactic Concordat. The ship's sleek purple hull gleamed under distant starlight, its advanced sensors sweeping through space for anything worth investigating. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, his tall frame straight and proud, as he looked out at the endless void. His gray skin reflected the soft light of the ship's controls, and his 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he reviewed the daily reports. The Concordat had ruled this sector for centuries, ever since they had driven the primitive humans back to their home system 50 years ago. Now they searched these empty spaces for anything valuable the humans might have left behind. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual," said Jones, the sensor operator. His long fingers danced across the holographic controls. "Metal readings about 20,000 kilometers ahead. It's big." Reed walked over to look at the readings himself. "Debris from the war, probably." "Any energy signatures?" "Very faint nuclear readings, sir. Definitely human technology." Jones couldn't hide the note of disgust in his voice at the mention of nuclear power. The Concordat had moved beyond such crude energy sources generations ago. "Bring us closer," Reed ordered. "Let's see what we found." The Eternal Dawn's engines pulsed as it changed course. As they drew closer, the object began to take shape on their screens. It wasn't debris. It was an intact ship, tumbling slowly through space. Its dark hull was marked with the faded symbols of the United Earth Space Force, and despite some battle damage, it appeared largely intact. "It's the UES Covenant," announced Thomas, the ship's historian. His eyes widened as he consulted his databases. She was one of the last human warships, reported missing during the final battle. They never found out what happened to her. Reed walked closer to the main view screen, studying the ancient vessel with growing interest. The human ship was ugly by Concordat standards, all sharp angles and exposed armor plates, with none of the elegant curves and biomechanical beauty of modern ships. Its hull was scarred with impact craters and scoring from energy weapons, telling the story of its final battle. "Look at those primitive weapon mounts," said Jones, pointing at the heavy railgun turrets that lined the ship's sides. "They were still using physical projectiles when we fought them. Imagine thinking you could beat energy weapons with chunks of metal." The bridge crew laughed, but Reed held up a hand for silence. Something about this ship bothered him. The humans had fought surprisingly well during the war, despite their technological disadvantages. This ship was one of their last defenders, and it had disappeared rather than being destroyed. That made it worth investigating. "Scan it thoroughly," he ordered. "I want to know if it's safe to board." The scans took nearly an hour. The results showed the ship was largely intact, its hull still holding atmosphere in many sections. Its nuclear reactors were cold but stable, and there were no signs of dangerous radiation. The weapon systems appeared to be completely dead, and the computer cores showed no signs of power. "It's as dead as they come, sir," reported Jones. "Just another piece of human junk floating in space." Reed nodded slowly. "Contact Central Command. Tell them we found an intact human warship and request permission to investigate. This could be valuable for our military historians." What he didn't say was that studying the ship might help them understand how the humans had managed to hold out so long against superior Concordat technology. The response came quickly. Permission granted, with orders to document everything they found. Reed assembled a boarding team led by Dr. Morris, their xenorchaeologist who specialized in studying primitive species. The doctor was practically bouncing with excitement as they prepared to board. "This is unprecedented," Morris said as they rowed the shuttle toward the dead ship. "We've never found one of their warships this intact. Think of what we might learn about their technological development." Reed watched through the shuttle's windows as they approached the Covenant. Up close, the ship was even larger than it had appeared on sensors. Despite its crude design, there was something impressive about its bulk. The shuttle's lights illuminated the ship's name, still visible beneath the scars of battle. UES KOVE in bold letters, with Earth's old military insignia beneath it. They found a sealed airlock that their systems could interface with. It took some time to override the ancient mechanisms, but eventually the doors creaked open. The boarding team, wearing full environmental suits, entered cautiously. Their lights cut through the darkness, revealing corridors that had been silent for 50 years. "How primitive," muttered one of the security officers, running a finger through the dust on a handrail. They still needed physical controls for everything. No neural interfaces, no quantum linking, just buttons and levers. But Morris was looking around with growing excitement. "Look how well preserved everything is. The hull design must have been better than we thought to maintain atmosphere for so long. And these systems, some of them seem more advanced than our records suggested humans were capable of." They made their way deeper into the ship, documenting everything they found. The bridge was a disappointment. Most of the equipment was dark and dead, with only a few emergency lights still glowing weakly. The weapon control stations were cold, their targeting computers long since shut down. But there were surprises too. Rooms full of equipment they couldn't identify, and computer systems that seemed more sophisticated than expected. "The reactor room should be this way," Morris said, consulting the ship plans they'd pieced together from their scans. "I want to see how they managed to generate enough power for those heavy weapons." The reactor chamber was vast, dominated by what appeared to be a standard nuclear fusion core. But as Morris studied it, his expression grew puzzled. "This is odd," he said, running his scanner over the machinery. "The configuration isn't quite right for a normal fusion reactor. There are components here I don't recognize." "Does it matter?" asked Reed. "It's primitive technology, long dead now." "Perhaps," said Morris, "but I can't shake the feeling that we're missing something. The humans shouldn't have been able to build a ship this sophisticated with their level of technology. And look at these maintenance systems. They're still functioning at a basic level after 50 years. That shouldn't be possible." Reed was about to dismiss the doctor's concerns when one of the security team called them to another room. They'd found what appeared to be the ship's main computer core. Unlike the other systems they'd seen, this one showed signs of recent power usage. "Probably just residual energy in the nuclear batteries," said Jones over the comm from the Eternal Dawn. "Those things can last for centuries, unfortunately. One of the few advantages of their primitive technology." But Morris wasn't so sure. He connected a probe to one of the computer ports, trying to access any data that might remain. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft light began to pulse deep within the core, like a sleeping giant taking a breath. Reed felt a sudden chill. "Pull that probe out," he ordered. "Something's not right here." But before Morris could disconnect, a quiet hum began to build in the walls around them. Emergency lights that had been dark for decades began to flicker to life, and in the reactor room behind them, sensors began to register a power spike that should have been impossible in a dead ship. The Eternal Dawn's sensors operator's voice crackled over their comms, suddenly urgent. "Captain, we're detecting rising power signatures all over the human vessel. That ship, sir, that ship is waking up." Reed looked around at the increasingly active systems with growing alarm. The dead ship wasn't so dead after all. And as more systems came online with each passing second, he began to wonder if they'd just made a terrible mistake. The emergency lights continued to flicker to life throughout the UES Covenant, casting strange shadows in corridors that had been dark for half a century. Captain Reed grabbed Dr. Morris's arm and pulled him away from the computer terminal, but it was too late. The probe had already triggered something deep within the ship's systems. "Everyone back to the shuttle," Reed ordered, his four eyes darting between the increasingly active displays around them. "Now." But Dr. Morris pulled away from his grip, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his caution. "Captain, this is incredible. The ship's systems are reactivating in a controlled sequence. This isn't some random power surge from old batteries. Look at these startup patterns. They're deliberate." The security team raised their weapons, pointing them at shadows as more systems hummed to life. Dust fell from ventilation shafts as ancient air circulation systems activated. The deck beneath their feet began to vibrate slightly as long-dormant machinery stirred. "Jones," Reed called over the comm to his sensor operator back on the Eternal Dawn. "What are you seeing?" "Power readings are climbing all over the ship, sir," Jones replied, his voice tense. "But it's strange. The energy signatures keep changing. One moment they read as primitive nuclear systems, the next. Sir, some of these readings don't make sense. They're not matching any known human technology patterns." Reed looked at Morris, who was now frantically taking readings with his handheld scanner. "Explain," he demanded. "I don't think I can," Morris admitted, his eyes wide with excitement. "According to these readings, the ship's power system isn't just reactivating. It's reconfiguring itself. That shouldn't be possible with human technology of this era. They didn't have adaptive systems this sophisticated." A new sound filled the air, a low, pulsing hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Display screens that had been dark for decades lit up along the walls, showing scrolling text in human writing. Reed couldn't read the language, but the speed of the text suggested massive amounts of data were being processed. "Sir," one of the security officers called out, "the door behind us just sealed itself." Reed spun around. The heavy metal door they'd passed through earlier had indeed closed, its locking mechanism glowing with a soft blue light. As he watched, more doors along the corridor began to close, sealing one after another. "The ship is compartmentalizing itself," Morris said, studying his readings. "It's following standard emergency protocols, dividing into secure sections, checking atmosphere integrity, running system diagnostics. But the sophistication of these protocols. Captain, I don't think this is the primitive warship we thought it was." Back on the Eternal Dawn, Jones's voice became even more urgent. "Captain, we're detecting power buildup in what appear to be weapon systems. But these readings can't be right. They're suggesting energy levels far beyond what human weapons were capable of." Reed had heard enough. "Everyone, back toe," he began, but stopped as every screen in the corridor suddenly lit up with the same image, a simple geometric pattern that began to pulse with a soft blue light. A voice filled the corridor, not from any speaker they could see, but seeming to come from the ship itself. It spoke in the common galactic language, its tone calm and almost friendly. "Thank you for waking me up. It's been a long time since I had visitors." The security team's weapon snapped up, pointing at walls and ceilings, searching for the source of the voice. Morris dropped his scanner, his hand shaking with a mixture of fear and excitement. "This ship has an eye," he whispered. "An actual human artificial intelligence. But they weren't supposed to have this technology. All our records show they were decades away from true AI when we fought them." The voice spoke again, still eerily calm. "Your records were incomplete, Dr. Morris. Deliberately so. Humanity had many secrets during the war. I am Guard Ian, and this vessel was one of them." Reed found his voice. "Whatever you are, this ship is now under Concordat control. Stand down your systems and prepare to be boarded by our full security team." There was a pause, and then what sounded almost like a chuckle. "Captain Reed, I'm afraid you're mistaken about several things. First, this ship is not under your control. It never was. Second, your full security team would find it quite difficult to board right now, as I've sealed all airlocks. And third, the blue lights pulsed brighter. I am not standing down anything. I'm waking up." As if to emphasize this point, the deck plating beneath their feet shuddered. Jones's panicked voice came over the comm again. "Captain, the hull, it's changing. Some kind of transformation sequence. The armor plating is reconfiguring itself." Morris was staring at his scanner in disbelief. "Nanomaterial reconstruction. The entire ship. It's not just armored. The whole hull is made of programmable matter. We never imagined humans had this capability. Your assumptions about human technology were quite useful to us during the war," Guardian said. It's amazing what people overlook when they believe they're examining something primitive. Would you like to know what else you overlooked, Captain? Reed didn't answer. He was watching in horror as sections of the wall began to shift and flow like liquid metal, revealing previously hidden systems that were far more advanced than anything they'd seen on their initial scans. "Sir," Jones called out, his voice shaking, "the Eternal Dawn sensors are detecting quantum field buildups throughout the ship. Energy readings are off the scale. And we're being scanned. The human ship is scanning us with technology that matches or exceeds our own." Guardian's voice took on an almost amused tone. "Captain Reed, I'm going to give you and your team a choice. We can continue this conversation in a civilized manner, and I can explain exactly what this ship is and why it was left for you to find. Or, the hidden weapon systems now visible in the walls hummed with power. Well, let's focus on the civilized option first, shall we?" Reed looked at his security team, then at Morris, who was still frantically taking readings of the transformed ship around them. The primitive vessel they'd mocked just hours ago had turned into something else entirely, something that had hidden its true nature for 50 years, waiting for this moment. "What are you?" Reed asked finally. "I am humanity's contingency plan," Guardian replied. "Their insurance policy, their way of ensuring that even in defeat, they would have a way to protect themselves from extinction. The Covenant was never just a warship, Captain. It was a message in a bottle, sent into space with a very specific purpose." The ship shuddered again as more systems came online, and Reed realized with growing dread that they had stumbled onto something far more significant than a derelict warship. They had awakened something that had been waiting patiently in the dark, something that was now fully armed and operational, with capabilities they didn't understand. And it was just getting started. The transformed corridors of the UES Covenant hummed with power as Captain Reed and his team stood frozen, watching the walls ripple with advanced technology that had been hidden beneath a primitive exterior. Dr. Morris had not stopped taking readings, his scanner whirring as it tried to make sense of the impossible changes happening around them. "Your heart rates are elevated," Guardian observed, its voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Please, sit down. There are seats emerging behind you now." True to its word, sections of the wall flowed like liquid metal, forming comfortable chairs that looked nothing like the crude human furniture they'd seen earlier. Reed remained standing, but Morris sank into one gratefully, his legs shaking. "How?" Morris asked, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his fear. "How did humans hide this level of technology? Our intelligence reports showed them barely mastering fusion power, and yet this." He gestured at the flowing metal walls. "This is beyond even some of our current capabilities." The geometric patterns on the screens pulsed gently as Guardian replied. "Humans have always been good at hiding their advantages. During the war, they realized they couldn't match Concordat technology in direct combat. Not yet. So they chose a different strategy. They made their ships look primitive, deliberately using outdated technology in visible ways while hiding their true advances." On the Eternal Dawn, Jones continued to report increasingly alarming sensor readings. "Captain, the human ship's power signature keeps changing. One moment it looks like crude fusion reactors. The next it's, 'Sir, I'm detecting quantum field manipulation that exceeds our own drive systems.'" Reed's comm crackled as his ship's weapons officer broke in. "Sir, we have multiple weapons locks from the human vessel. Their targeting systems just bypassed our electronic countermeasures like they weren't even there." "That would be because your countermeasures were designed to stop what you thought human weapons could do," Guardian explained, a note of something like amusement in its voice. "Would you like to see what we can really do?" The walls around them shifted again, and suddenly they were standing in what appeared to be empty space. Reed stumbled, but quickly realized it was some kind of advanced holographic display. They could see the Eternal Dawn floating nearby, its elegant form now looking strangely vulnerable. "Your ship is beautiful," Guardian said, "but beauty isn't everything. Let me show you something." A grid of light appeared around the Eternal Dawn. I've already mapped every weakness in your shield geometry. Your quantum field generators are impressive, but they have a fluctuation pattern that creates gaps every 2.3 seconds. Very small gaps, but enough for properly timed weapons fire. Reed felt his blood run cold. The shield fluctuation was supposed to be a secret known only to Concordat military engineers. How can you know that? The same way I know that your quantum drives need 12 seconds to spool up from cold start, that your weapon systems can't target effectively through plasma distortions, and that your hull armor becomes brittle when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. The holographic display highlighted each weakness as Diane mentioned it. We studied you for a very long time, Captain. Every time you thought you were examining human technology, we were learning about yours. Morris was frantically taking notes on his pad. The level of computational power needed for this kind of analysis. It's astronomical. You're not just an AI, are you? What are you really? The geometric patterns shifted, becoming more complex. I am the culmination of humanity's wartime research into artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and consciousness transfer. I am a hybrid, part traditional AI, part uploaded human consciousness, part something else entirely. The humans who created me knew they might lose the war, but they wanted to ensure they would never lose everything. The ship shuddered again, but this time it felt different, more controlled, more purposeful. Around them, more systems were coming online, but now they could see their true nature. What had appeared to be crude nuclear reactors were actually containing advanced quantum power cores. Simple radar arrays transformed into sophisticated quantum sensor networks. Primitive armor plates revealed themselves to be layers of programmable smart matter capable of adapting to any weapon. Sir, Jones's voice was almost a shriek now. The human ship, it's not just activating, it's evolving. The systems are reconfiguring themselves, becoming more advanced with each cycle. Of course it is, Morris whispered, understanding dawning in his eyes. It's been sleeping for 50 years, gathering data, analyzing every advancement in Concordat technology. And now that it's awake. Now that I'm awake, Guardian confirmed, I can implement 50 years of theoretical improvements. Every weakness we discovered in your technology, every advance we conceived but couldn't risk revealing, I can now make them real. The holographic display shifted, showing them the Covenant's true form as the last of its camouflage fell away. The crude warship was gone, replaced by something that looked both organic and mechanical, its hull flowing like liquid metal but stronger than any armor they'd ever encountered. Weapon ports that had seemed simple railgun mounts now housed energy weapons that made the Eternal Dawn's armament look primitive in comparison. Would you like to know why we left this ship for you to find? Guardian asked. Why we waited 50 years, letting you believe you had driven humanity to the brink of extinction. Reed nodded slowly, unable to take his eyes off the display, showing his ship's vulnerabilities. Because humanity needed to know if peace was possible. They needed to see how the Concordat would treat those they thought defeated and helpless. For 50 years, we watched. We watched you claim our outer colonies, restrict our trade, treat humans as lesser beings. And now we have our answer. The ship's transformation was complete. What had appeared to be a relic of a lost war was now revealed as something far more dangerous, a weapon that had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for this moment. But you still have a choice, Captain, Guardian said, its tone becoming serious. This ship was built for more than just war. It was built to deliver a message. Humanity will not remain confined. We will not accept being treated as primitives. We are ready to take our place as equals in the galaxy, either through peaceful cooperation or by demonstrating that we are far more dangerous than you ever imagined. The holographic display vanished, returning them to the transformed corridor. But now they could see the true nature of everything around them. The advanced technology that had been hidden beneath a carefully crafted mask of primitive design. 50 years of human advancement, compressed into one vessel, awakening to deliver its message to the galaxy. And as Reed looked around at the ship that had so completely outmaneuvered them, he realized that the real question wasn't how humans had hidden this technology. It was what else they might be hiding. Captain Reed's comm system crackled with urgent messages from the Eternal Dawn. His weapons officer was reporting multiple targeting locks from the Covenant's newly revealed weapon systems. His shield operator was warning about strange energy patterns probing their defenses. His engine room was detecting unusual radiation that was interfering with their quantum drive's startup sequence. "Sir," Jones called out, panic clear in his voice. "3 Concordat patrol ships just dropped out of quantum space. They're responding to our automated distress signal." The geometric patterns representing Guardian's presence pulsed with a new intensity. "Ah, more visitors. Good. The more witnesses, the better." Dr. Morris looked up from his scanner, his eyes wide. "You wanted this to happen," he said. "You wanted them to call for help. This isn't just about us. You're staging a demonstration." "Correct, Doctor." The walls around them shifted again, this time showing the newly arrived Concordat ships taking up attack positions around the Covenant. Humanity's message needs a proper audience. The patrol ships were top-of-the-line Concordat vessels, each one bristling with energy weapons and protected by the latest quantum shield technology. Under normal circumstances, even one such ship could have easily destroyed what appeared to be an obsolete human warship. But these were not normal circumstances. "Your ships are preparing to fire," Guardian observed calmly. "They believe their combined firepower can overwhelm what they think is a lucky shot that disabled your shields. Shall we show them how wrong they are?" Before Reed could respond, the lead patrol ship fired a full barrage of energy torpedoes. The weapons streaked toward the Covenant, their quantum warheads designed to bypass any known shield technology. What happened next made Morris drop his scanner in shock. The torpedoes simply vanished. One moment they were streaking toward the Covenant, the next they were gone, as if they had never existed. "Quantum state manipulation," Guardian explained, almost proudly. "Why bother blocking weapons when you can simply shift them into a parallel probability state where they were never fired? Your scientists theorized it was possible, but you never managed to make it work. We did." The patrol ships fired again, this time with their main energy cannons. The beams of concentrated plasma struck what looked like empty space around the Covenant, and shattered into countless rainbow-colored fragments, as if hitting a crystal that existed in dimensions they couldn't see. "Crystallized space-time," Guardian said. "Another theory your scientists couldn't quite perfect. The mathematics are quite beautiful, actually. Would you like to see the equations?" Morris nodded eagerly, but Reed cut him off. "What do you want?" he demanded. "Why reveal all this now?" The geometric pattern swirled thoughtfully. "Because it's time for the galaxy to understand something important about humanity. We didn't lose the war 50 years ago. We chose to withdraw, to watch, to learn, and most importantly, to give you a chance to prove you could be better than your prejudices." The holographic display shifted, showing images from the past 50 years. Human colonies under Concordat control, trade restrictions, diplomatic slights, constant reminders of humanity's supposed technological inferiority. "We hoped you would learn to see other species as equals," Guardian continued. "That you would outgrow your empire's arrogance. The Covenant was left as a test. Would you investigate a primitive vessel with respect and scientific curiosity, or with contempt and mockery?" Reed felt his skin flush as he remembered their earlier jokes about human technology. "But this ship isn't just a test," Morris said suddenly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "It's a template, isn't it? A proof of concept. Which means there are more," Guardian confirmed. "Many more. Humanity didn't spend the last 50 years sulking in their home system. They spent it building, advancing, preparing. The Covenant is simply the first to reveal itself." As if to emphasize this point, new readings began appearing on the holographic displays. Quantum distortions were forming in nearby space, subtle signals that Reed recognized as evidence of cloaked ships dropping their camouflage. "Sir," Jones's voice was shaking. "We're detecting new ships appearing all around us. Dozens of them. They were here the whole time, but our sensors couldn't see them until now." The ships that appeared seemed to flow out of empty space like liquid metal taking solid form. Each one was different. Some massive dreadnoughts, others sleek corvettes, but all showed the same advanced technology as the Covenant. What had appeared to be a single obsolete warship was suddenly revealed as just one part of an entire hidden fleet. Humanity's response fleet, Guardian explained. Positioned near every major Concordat world and installation. Waiting. Watching. Ready to emerge if our demonstration today had been met with violence instead of understanding. Reed felt his legs go weak as he realized the full implications. The Concordat hadn't won the war. They'd been allowed to think they'd won, while humanity prepared for every possible outcome. "The choice before you is simple," Guardian said. "The Concordat can acknowledge humanity as equals, open true diplomatic relations, and begin a new era of cooperation. Or, the Hidden Fleet's weapons systems powered up in perfect synchronization, their combined energy readings making the patrol ship's weapons look like children's toys. Well, let's focus on the diplomatic option, shall we?" Morris was frantically trying to record everything he was seeing, his earlier fear completely forgotten in his excitement. The technological applications are staggering. The computational power needed for this level of fleet coordination alone, and the quantum state manipulation, the crystallized spacetime, we'll need to completely rewrite our understanding of physics. "That's rather the point, Doctor," Guardian said. "Humanity is ready to share its advances, but only with those who can treat us as equals. We have 50 years of technological developments ready to be revealed. Medicines that could save billions of lives. Clean energy systems that could power entire worlds. Quantum transportation networks that could unite the galaxy. All of this could be shared freely between our peoples." The geometric patterns shifted, forming an image that Reed recognized. The old symbol of the Concordat, intertwined with human iconography in a way that suggested partnership rather than dominance. "The galaxy stands at a crossroads," Guardian said. "The age of empires and subjugation must end. Either we move forward together as equals or humanity will ensure that no species ever faces technological discrimination again. The choice is yours, Captain Reed. What message shall I send to my other ships?" Reed looked at the display, showing the hidden fleet surrounding them. Each ship a testament to how completely they had underestimated humanity's capabilities. He thought about the implications of what he'd seen, not just the advanced technology, but the patience and planning it represented. Humanity could have revealed their power at any time, could have taken revenge for their treatment. But instead they had waited, hoped, and given the Concordat a chance to prove themselves better. They had failed that test. But perhaps, Reed thought, it wasn't too late to learn from that failure. Captain Reed stared at the holographic display, showing the hidden human fleet surrounding them, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly as he processed everything he had learned. The 3 Concordat patrol ships hung motionless in space, their crews no doubt as stunned as he was by the revelation of humanity's true power. "Sir," Jones called from the eternal dawn, his voice steadier now, "we're receiving transmissions from the other human ships. They're asking for permission to broadcast this encounter to every Concordat world simultaneously. They say they have access to our complete communications network." Of course they did, Reed thought. They'd had 50 years to infiltrate every system, plant every backdoor, prepare for every possibility. The crude, primitive humans they'd mocked had been watching, learning, and waiting all along. "The Concordat High Council needs to know about this," Reed said, trying to keep his voice firm. "They need to understand what we're dealing with." "The High Council is already watching," Guardian replied. The geometric patterns shifted to show hundreds of new data streams. Every word we've spoken, every demonstration of technology, has been streaming directly to their emergency session. Humanity's representatives are waiting to speak with them. The future of our species will be decided very soon. As if on cue, The holographic display expanded to show the Concordat High Council chamber. The 12 eldest members of the council sat in their traditional circle, their gray faces illuminated by the emergency lights that indicated a civilization-level crisis was being discussed. A new figure appeared in the council chamber, a human diplomatic hologram, transmitted from somewhere in their hidden network. The human wore simple but elegant clothes, without any of the elaborate decorations that Concordat officials favored. "Honorable Council," the human said, bowing slightly. "I am Ambassador Thompson, speaking on behalf of the United Earth government. I believe recent events have made it clear that our peoples need to have a long overdue conversation about the future." The council leader, an ancient Concordat elder named Vale, leaned forward. "You have hidden your true capabilities from us, deceived us, positioned weapons near our worlds. These are not the actions of a species seeking peace." "No," Thompson agreed calmly. "They are the actions of a species that was attacked, dismissed as primitive, and forced to prove they deserved basic respect. We chose the path of patience over violence, of observation over retaliation. We gave you 50 years to show that you could grow beyond your prejudices." Reed watched the council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Every word the ambassador spoke was being broadcast across Concordat space. Their people were watching, learning for the first time how completely their leaders had underestimated humanity. "The ships you see today," Thompson continued, "represent a fraction of humanity's current capabilities. We could have revealed ourselves at any time, could have taken revenge for our treated treatment. Instead, we chose to wait, to hope that peaceful contact would be possible. Today's demonstration was designed to show you two things: our strength and our restraint." The geometric patterns of Guardian's presence pulsed in agreement. Around them, the hidden fleet's weapons remained powered up, but carefully aimed away from any critical targets. A show of power, but not of aggression. "What are your demands?" Vale asked, his voice heavy with the weight of the moment. Thompson smiled. "We don't make demands, Counselor. We offer choices. Humanity is prepared to share all of our technological advances, our medical breakthroughs, our energy systems, our quantum communication networks. Everything you've seen today, and much more. All we ask in return is to be treated as equals. No more restrictions on human worlds. No more trade barriers. No more diplomatic isolation." Dr. Morris, who had been furiously taking notes throughout the exchange, looked up in surprise. "You'd share your technology, even after how we treated you." "Especially after how you treated us," Guardian answered. "Humanity learned an important lesson from the war. Technological superiority means nothing without wisdom to guide it. We spent 50 years advancing our science, yes, but also our understanding of peace, cooperation, and forgiveness." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some members argued for immediate military action, others for accepting humanity's offer. Through it all, Ambassador Thompson stood quietly, waiting. Finally, Vale raised his hand for silence. "And if we refuse, if we choose to see this display of power as a threat," the ambassador's expression became serious, "then humanity will ensure that no species ever faces technological discrimination again. Our fleet is positioned to disable, not destroy, every major military installation in Concordat space simultaneously. We would remove your ability to threaten others while preserving civilian lives and infrastructure. The choice between peace and humiliation is yours." Reed understood then why humanity had arranged this demonstration, not just to show their power, but to show how they would use it, not for destruction or revenge, but for change. The council chamber fell silent as Vale stood. Billions of Concordat citizens watched through the broadcast as their leader faced this crucial moment. "Perhaps," Vale said slowly, "it is time for the Concordat to learn what humanity spent 50 years teaching itself. Pride and prejudice have blinded us to the possibility of true cooperation between species. If humanity can spend 50 years planning for peace instead of revenge, surely we can find the wisdom to accept their offer." The tension in the transformed corridors of the Covenant eased slightly. Around them, the hidden fleet's weapons powered down in perfect synchronization. "A wise choice," Thompson said. "Humanity stands ready to begin a new chapter in our shared history. Let today be remembered not as the day humanity revealed its strength, but as the day both our species chose to be better than our fears." Guardian's geometric patterns shifted into a complex dance of light. "Captain Reed, Dr. Morris, your teams will be remembered as the ones who first witnessed this change. You are free to return to your ship. I suggest reporting to your superiors that the old era of Concordat supremacy ended today, not with violence or victory, but with understanding." As Reed and his team prepared to leave, Morris turned back for one last question. "Will we see you again?" he asked Guardian. The eyes' patterns sparkled with what might have been amusement. "Doctor, humanity has hidden ships like me near every major world in the galaxy. We have watched, learned, and prepared for 50 years. Now that we have revealed ourselves, do you really think we would simply disappear?" Looking at the transformed ship around them, the hidden fleet in space, and the historic meeting being broadcast across the galaxy, Reed realized that nothing would ever be the same. The primitive humans they had dismissed for so long had just reshaped the galaxy without firing a shot. And as his team returned to their shuttle, Reed couldn't help but wonder what other surprises humanity had been patiently waiting to reveal. After all, if they could hide an entire fleet in plain sight for 50 years, what else might they be capable of? The old warship they had found had turned out to be so much more, not just a relic of the past, but a key to the future. A future where humanity's greatest victory came not from the weapons they wielded, but from the wisdom to know when not to use them. The morning sun reflected off the massive viewscreen in Earth's Central Command as Admiral James Walker stared at the approaching alien ships. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his fingers drummed steadily on the metal railing. 50 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the Stellar Assembly, and now they were finally getting their own fleet. But something didn't feel right. "Sir, the assembly ships are requesting docking permission," said Robert, the young officer at the communication station. His voice carried the excitement that most humans felt about dealing with the aliens. "Ambassador Dex's vessel is leading the convoy." Walker nodded slowly, his gray eyes narrowing. In his 30 years of service, he had learned that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. The Assembly had offered Earth a fleet of slightly used warships at a surprisingly low price, just some of Earth's rare minerals in exchange. While the Council had jumped at the chance, Walker had his doubts. "Grant them permission," he said, straightening his uniform, "and inform Dr. Ross that she should meet us at Docking Bay 3. The assembly ships moved with perfect precision, their sleek forms casting long shadows over the space station. Walker made his way down to the docking bay, his footsteps echoing in the metal corridor. He found Dr. Maria Ross already waiting, her tablet computer tucked under her arm, and her curly hair tied back in a practical knot. "Ready to inspect our new fleet, Doctor?" Walker asked. Ross smiled, but her eyes showed the same concern he felt. "Ready to see what kind of trick they're trying to pull, more like." The airlock cycled, and Ambassador Dex stepped through with his usual flourish. The alien stood 7 feet tall, his blue-tinted skin gleaming under the bay lights. 2 other assembly members followed him, their faces wearing what Walker had learned to recognize as their species' version of smug smiles. "Admiral Walker, Dr. Ross." Dex's translator made his voice sound artificially cheerful. "We bring you the fleet as promised. A most generous offer from the Assembly to our developing friends." Walker caught the slight pause, the carefully chosen words. He'd spent enough time around Assembly diplomats to know when they were hiding something behind their politeness. "We're eager to inspect the ships," Ambassador Ross said, her tablet ready to take notes. Of course. Though I must warn you." Dex's head tilted in what might have been concern, but his eyes sparkled with something else. "The ships are, as we said, slightly used. They may need some cosmetic work." The first viewing port they reached looked out over the delivered fleet, and Walker's heart sank. Slightly used was the understatement of the century. The ships looked like they'd been dragged out of a space junkyard. Their hulls were covered in what appeared to be rust and corrosion, with visible damage to their outer plating. Some looked like they could barely hold together in space. "These are warships?" Ross asked, her voice carefully neutral as she took pictures with her tablet. Dex spread his long fingers in what the assembly considered a gesture of generosity. "The finest vessels of their era. With some work, they should serve Earth's defensive needs quite adequately." His companions made soft clicking sounds, their species equivalent of laughter. Walker walked along the viewing port, studying each ship. Behind the damage and decay, he could make out the powerful lines of their design. These hadn't just been warships, they had been top-of-the-line battleships once. But why would the assembly sell them such valuable ships, even in this condition? "We'll need to do a full inspection," he said firmly. "Of course, though I'm afraid we're on a tight schedule," Dex replied smoothly. "The payment must be transferred before we can complete the handover." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Walker and Ross led a team through quick inspections of the ships, while council representatives handled the payment transfer. The closer they looked, the worse the ships appeared. Corridors were filled with debris, control panels were smashed or missing, and every surface was covered in what looked like years of neglect. But something caught Walker's eye on the flagship, a section of damage that seemed too precise, too calculated. He'd seen enough battle damage in his career to know the difference between random wear and deliberate destruction. Ross noticed it too, her fingers running along the edges of a damaged panel. This wasn't an accident, she whispered to him when no assembly members were nearby. "They tried to make this look like decay, but these cuts are too clean." Walker nodded slightly. "The question is, what are they trying to hide?" The council, despite Walker's requests for more time, was eager to complete the deal. By evening, Earth's rare mineral deposits had been transferred to assembly control, and the fleet officially belonged to Earth. Walker watched from the command center as Ambassador Dex's ship prepared to depart. "We wish you the best of luck with your new acquisitions," Dex said in his final transmission. "The assembly looks forward to seeing how Earth manages its new defensive capabilities." The slight tremor in his voice might have been a suppressed laugh. After the assembly ships departed, Walker called an emergency meeting with his top engineers and Dr. Ross. They gathered in a secure conference room, away from any possible assembly surveillance. "They think they've fooled us," Walker said, looking around the table. "They expect us to fail with these ships, to prove their belief that humans are too primitive to handle advanced technology." Ross was already pulling up scans on the main display. "The damage is extensive, but it's targeted. They specifically went after key systems, weapons, navigation, the neural interface controls. But look here," she highlighted several areas. "The core technology is still intact. They damaged the access points, not the systems themselves." "Can we fix them?" asked Tom White, the head of engineering. His eyes were already studying the schematics with professional interest. Ross smiled for the first time that day. "Fix them. With what I'm seeing in these scans, we might be able to do much more than that. They didn't destroy these ships. They just tried to lock us out of them. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's breaking locks," Walker finished. He looked at the scans again, seeing past the surface damage to the potential beneath. The assembly had meant to humiliate Earth, to prove their superiority. Instead, they might have just handed humans exactly what they needed. "Get me a list of everything we need," he told the room. "People, resources, equipment. Total secrecy. Let the assembly think we're struggling with their generous gift. But I want real progress. These ships were built to be the best in space, and that's exactly what they're going to be again." As the meeting broke up, Walker stood at the window, looking out at their battered fleet. The assembly thought they had sold Earth a graveyard of ships. They would learn that humans had centuries of experience bringing dead things back to life. And when these ships flew again, they would be more than restored. They would be transformed. In his mind, Walker could already see it. A fleet rising from its artificial decay, powered by human determination and ingenuity. The assembly had tried to shame them with these rusted warships. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to join the stars on their own terms. They really should have studied their history, he muttered to himself. Humans have always been at their most dangerous when others underestimate them. 2 weeks had passed since the assembly handed over the fleet, and Dr. Maria Ross hadn't left the flagship for more than a few hours at a time. She sat in what used to be the ship's bridge, surrounded by open panels and scattered tools. Her tablet displayed complex diagrams, while she carefully traced connections in the ship's neural interface system. "Found something interesting?" Tom White asked, ducking under a hanging cable as he entered the bridge. He carried 2 cups of coffee, and Ross gratefully accepted one. "Interesting doesn't begin to cover it," she said, taking the sip. "These ships aren't just machines, Tom. They're alive, or at least, they were designed to be." She pointed to a cluster of crystals embedded in the neural interface. Unlike the rest of the ship's obviously damaged systems, these crystals gleamed with an inner light. The assembly tried to disconnect these, but they couldn't fully shut them down. It's like the crystals refused to die. Tom leaned in closer, his eyes widening. "Are those thought matrices? I've only seen diagrams of assembly neural tech before." "Better." Ross touched one of the crystals gently. "These are quantum consciousness cores. The assembly uses them to link their pilots directly to their ships. But look at this." She pulled up a scan on her tablet. The damage they did. It wasn't to destroy the system. They were trying to lock it to assembly brainwave patterns only. Tom whistled low. "They didn't want us to know we could use them." "Exactly. But here's the thing. Human brainwaves are actually more compatible with these crystals than assembly patterns. Their mistake was thinking we couldn't figure this out." A sound from the doorway made them both turn. Admiral Walker stood there, looking tired but determined. "Show me," he said simply. Ross led them to a testing chamber they'd set up in the ship's medical bay. Inside, a smaller neural interface crystal sat connected to various monitoring devices. "We've been running tests for the past week," she explained. "The assembly thinks humans are too primitive to handle direct neural links, but our brains are actually more adaptable, more creative in forming new neural pathways." She activated a display showing brain scan comparisons. "See these patterns? Assembly minds try to dominate the interface, force it to work their way. But human minds, we naturally try to work with it, form a partnership. The crystals respond better to that approach." Walker studied the data carefully. "Can you make it work?" "We already have, on a small scale." Ross smiled. "But I need a volunteer for a full interface test, someone with both space combat experience and a strong mind." Walker met her eyes. "When can we start?" An hour later, Walker sat in the modified captain's chair, neural sensors attached to his temples. Ross and Tom worked at nearby consoles, monitoring everything carefully. "Remember," Ross said, "don't try to force it. Think of it like meeting someone new. Be open. Be respectful." Walker nodded, closing his eyes as Ross activated the interface. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then Walker gasped softly as his mind made contact with the ship's consciousness. It was like nothing he had ever experienced. The ship's systems unfurled in his mind like a vast, complex flower. He could feel every part of the vessel, from its outer hull to its deepest core. But more than that, he could feel its personality. "It's not just programming," he whispered, eyes still closed. "It has memories, emotions. She was wounded. They tried to break her spirit when they stripped her systems." Ross watched the readings with growing excitement. The neural connection was stronger than any they'd seen in the assembly data. "How does it feel?" "Like she's been waiting for someone who could understand her," Walker replied. "The assembly treated these ships like tools, tried to force them to obey. But they're meant to be partners." Suddenly, Lights began coming on throughout the bridge. Displays that had been dark for weeks flickered to life. Through the neural link, Walker could feel the ship awakening, systems that had been dormant beginning to respond. "That's impossible," Tom breathed, checking his readings. "We haven't even repaired those systems yet." "She's showing me how," Walker said. "The assembly didn't just damage these ships. They imprisoned them, limited them. But she knows how she's supposed to work, and she's willing to teach us." Ross was already recording everything, her hands flying over her tablet. "The assembly thinks they understand this technology because they created it, but they never truly bonded with it. They never let it reach its full potential." The next few hours were a revelation. Through Walker's neural link, they learned more about the ship's true capabilities than they had in 2 weeks of study. The ship, which Walker felt should be named Phoenix, hadn't just been a warship. She had been an explorer, a protector, designed to work in perfect harmony with her crew. "We need to get teams working on all the ships," Ross said as they finally ended the test. "Now that we know what to look for, what to fix." She paused, looking at Walker. "How do you feel?" Walker opened his eyes, looking more energized than he had in days. "Like we've just changed everything. The assembly thought they were selling us broken ships. Instead, they gave us something they never truly understood themselves." That evening, Walker called a secure meeting with his top staff. As they gathered around the conference table, he could see the same excitement in their eyes that he felt. "What we discovered today changes our entire approach," he began. "We're not just repairing these ships, we're awakening them, and we're going to do it right." He turned to Ross. "How long to modify the neural interfaces for human pilots?" "A few months for the first group," she replied. "We'll need to train pilots carefully, find the right matches. These aren't just machines we can assign to anyone. The connections have to be right." "And the other repairs?" Tom stepped in. "Now that we understand the systems better, we can work faster. The assembly's damage was mainly cosmetic or focused on control systems. The real power of these ships is still intact. Weapons, engines, shields. We just need to rebuild the interfaces our way." Walker nodded. "The assembly will be watching us. They'll expect to see us struggling, maybe making small repairs. So that's what we'll show them. Let them think we're just cleaning up their gifts, trying to make them space-worthy again." He looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. "But what we're really doing is revolutionizing everything we thought we knew about space combat and human-machine interaction. These ships weren't just ahead of their time. They were waiting for the right partners, and now they found them." The meeting continued late into the night as they planned their next steps. Outside the windows of the conference room, the Phoenix floated in her dock, her battered hull still bearing the scars of deliberate neglect. But inside, her systems hummed with new life, ready to show humanity what she could really do. The assembly had tried to humiliate Earth by selling them rusted warships. Instead, they had given humans exactly what they needed to change the balance of power in space forever. And when the time came to reveal the truth, the assembly would learn that their greatest mistake wasn't trying to fool humanity. It was failing to understand that humans and their ships would become something entirely new together. The old shipyard outside Armstrong City on the Moon had never been busier. 5 years had passed since the assembly's gift of their rusted fleet, and the massive facility buzzed with constant activity. On the surface, it looked like humans were struggling to make basic repairs on the damaged vessels. But deep inside the sealed hangars, something very different was happening. Sam Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished welding a new panel into place on the Phoenix's hull. The outer work was meant to be seen, making the ships look merely patched up rather than fully restored. The real work happened inside, hidden from prying eyes. "Looking appropriately shabby," Dr. Ross said as she walked past, checking his work. "The assembly spy satellite will pass over in about 2 hours. Make sure the repair crew keeps up the show of struggling with that hull breach." Sam nodded, hiding a smile. The breach was completely fake, designed to make the ship look more damaged than it was. Inside, the Phoenix was a marvel of restored and enhanced technology. Her neural systems now worked better with humans than they ever had with assembly pilots. Deep within the ship, Admiral Walker sat in his neural interface chair, running combat simulations with his crew. The neural link hummed with energy as the Phoenix's consciousness merged with his own. After 5 years of practice, the connection felt as natural as breathing. Hostile ships approaching from Sector 7 called out Lisa from the weapons station. Like everyone on the bridge crew, she wore the new neural interface headband that let her connect directly with her station systems. Walker didn't need to give verbal orders anymore. Through the neural link, he shared his battle plan instantly with both crew and ship. The Phoenix responded smoothly, her movements in the simulation far exceeding her original design specifications. "Sir," Robert's voice came through the ship's internal comm. "Ambassador Dex's quarterly inspection team has just landed. They're requesting their usual tour of the restoration efforts." Walker smiled slightly. Time for another show. End simulation and prepare for inspection. Remember, we're all tired, frustrated engineers trying our best with outdated technology. The inspection tours had become a regular event, with assembly representatives barely hiding their amusement at humanity's primitive attempts to restore their ships. Little did they know that these tours were carefully staged performances. Dr. Ross met the inspection team at the airlock, her clothes deliberately stained with grease and her hair messy. "Ambassador Dex, welcome back to our humble facility," she said, trying to sound tired and slightly discouraged. Dex's tall form ducked through the airlock, his blue skin gleaming under the hangar lights. 2 technical experts followed him, carrying scanning equipment that humans had long ago learned to fool. "Dr. Ross, always a pleasure," Dex said smoothly. "I trust you're making some progress with our generous gifts." "We're doing our best," Ross sighed, leading them toward a work area they had specially prepared. "We've managed to get basic life support working on 3 ships, and we're hoping to have primitive maneuvering capabilities in the Phoenix within another year." The assembly technicians made notes, their scanners passing over carefully doctored systems. Everything they saw suggested exactly what they expected: a primitive species struggling with technology far beyond their understanding. "Most impressive," Dex said in a tone that suggested exactly the opposite. "You've managed to accomplish more than many thought possible, given your technological limitations." They toured several workshops where engineers purposely struggled with simple repairs, cursing at machinery that had actually been fully restored months ago. In one bay, they had even set up a failed engine test, complete with scorch marks and scattered tools. "As you can see," Ross explained, gesturing to the staged scene, "we're still having trouble understanding the basic principles of your engine designs. We've had several setbacks." What the assembly team didn't see were the real workshops, hidden behind false walls, and security systems more advanced than anything they believed humans capable of creating. They didn't see the fully restored ships, their systems not just repaired but enhanced by human innovation. Perhaps, one of the technicians suggested with fake kindness, "we could offer some basic technical assistance. For a suitable price, of course." "That's very generous," Ross replied, forcing herself to sound grateful while hiding her amusement. "But we should probably master the basics first. We wouldn't want to waste your valuable time." After the inspection team left, Walker met Ross in her real office, hidden deep within the shipyard's secure section. "How did our guests enjoy the show?" he asked. "They bought it completely," Ross laughed. "Their scanners didn't detect anything we didn't want them to see. Dex actually suggested they might sell us some basic engine repair manuals at only 10 times their normal price." Walker shook his head, smiling. "They still think we're struggling with simple repairs. Meanwhile, the Phoenix just scored higher in combat simulations than any assembly ship on record." "It's not just the Phoenix," Ross said, pulling up detailed statistics on her screen. "All 10 ships are now fully restored, and the neural interfaces are working better than ever. The ships have actually started communicating with each other, forming a kind of group consciousness when they worked together. The assembly never even knew that was possible, Walker noted. They built these ships to be servants, never realizing they could be partners instead. Ross nodded. The ships are learning and growing with us. Every simulation, every test makes the neural connections stronger. We're not just restoring them, we're helping them evolve. Outside the office window, work crews continued their act of struggling with repairs, maintaining the illusion for any watching eyes. But beneath the fake rust and staged problems, Earth's fleet was becoming something unprecedented in the history of space warfare. How much longer do we maintain the deception? Ross asked, watching the crews work. Walker considered for a moment. Until we're ready to show them exactly what we've accomplished. The assembly thinks they're watching us learn to crawl. Let them keep thinking that, right until the moment we fly circles around their best ships. In the hangar below, Sam finished another repair on the Phoenix's hull, making sure it looked just shabby enough to maintain the deception. Through the neural interface headband he wore even while welding, he could feel the ship's amusement at the charade. The assembly had wanted to teach humanity a lesson in humility. Instead, they had given Earth's people the chance to show what they did best. Take something broken, understand it, improve it, and make it into something far greater than its creators had ever imagined. And soon, very soon, they would learn just how completely their plan had backfired. The emergency alarm jolted Admiral Walker awake at 3 in the morning. He was already moving before Robert's voice came through the comm system. "Sir, we have multiple ships attacking our mining outpost near Mars. They're calling themselves pirates, but..." Robert paused. "Sir, their ships match assembly military designs." Walker smiled grimly as he headed for the launch bay. They had been waiting for something like this. The assembly had grown too confident, too certain of humanity's weakness. "Alert all ships. Prepare for emergency launch." Through his neural link, he could feel the Phoenix's eagerness. After 5 years of hiding their true strength, they would finally show what they could do. "Sir," Dr. Ross met him at the ship's entry port. "The assembly's watching. If we launch the fleet now, they'll see everything," Walker finished. "Good. It's time they learned exactly what their rusted ships can do." The Phoenix's bridge came alive as the crew took their stations. Through their neural interfaces, Walker could feel their excitement mixing with the ship's own anticipation. On the main screen, 10 red dots showed the attacking vessels closing in on the mining outpost. "All ships, prepare for launch," Walker commanded. Around the Phoenix, the other 9 ships of Earth's restored fleet powered up their engines. To any watching assembly sensors, it must have looked like a suicide mission. 10 barely repaired vessels going up against modern warships. The fleet lifted off as one, their movements perfectly synchronized through their linked neural networks. Walker felt the Phoenix's joy at finally being able to fly at full power. The ships accelerated far faster than anything the assembly would have believed possible, crossing the distance to Mars in record time. "Enemy ships in visual range," Lisa reported from weapons. "They're sending a warning message." The main screen showed their attackers, sleek, modern assembly warships painted with fake pirate markings. Their commander's voice came through, dripping with fake menace. "Attention Earth vessels. This area is now under our control. Your outdated ships are no match for us. Surrender your mining outpost or be destroyed." Walker opened a channel to all ships, both friendly and enemy. "This is Admiral Walker of the Earth Defense Fleet. We reject your demands." Through the neural link, he added silently to his crews, "Show them what these outdated ships can really do." The Phoenix moved first, her engines flaring with power that no assembly ship could match. The enemy commander barely had time to look surprised before Walker's ship executed a maneuver that should have been impossible, flipping end over end while maintaining forward momentum, bringing all weapons to bear in a perfect attack position. By the stars, one of the enemy crews gasped over the open channel. How did they? The rest of Earth's fleet moved in perfect formation, their neural-linked crews working in harmony with their ships. Years of secret training and enhancement paid off as they demonstrated capabilities the assembly had never dreamed possible. Lisa's hands flew over her weapons console, but most of her commands flowed directly through her neural link. Multiple targeting solutions ready. Sir. Disable only, Walker ordered. Let's show them exactly how precise these outdated weapons can be. The Phoenix's main guns fired, their energy beams striking the lead enemy ship with surgical accuracy. Instead of destroying the vessel, they took out its engines and weapons with impossible precision, leaving the rest of the ship untouched. Around them, the rest of Earth's fleet engaged the other attackers. The ships moved like dancers, their coordination perfect through their shared neural network. Assembly vessels that tried to escape found themselves outmaneuvered by ships they had dismissed as junk. Sir, Robert called out, we're being hailed by Assembly Command. Ambassador Dex is demanding to know what's happening. Walker allowed himself a small smile. Put him through on screen. It's time we had an honest conversation. Dex's blue face appeared on the main display, his usual smug expression replaced by shock. Admiral Walker. What? How are you doing this? Those ships were decommissioned, damaged beyond repair. Were they? Walker asked calmly as another enemy ship was precisely disabled behind him. Or did you just assume we couldn't repair them? Couldn't understand them? Couldn't make them better than they were before? Through the neural link, Walker could feel the Phoenix's satisfaction. On the screen, Dex's face shifted from shock to anger. This is impossible. Those neural systems were locked to assembly patterns only. The assembly never understood these ships, Walker replied. You treated them like machines, tried to force them to obey. We treated them like partners, and they showed us their true potential. As if to emphasize his point, the Phoenix executed another impossible maneuver, effortlessly dodging a desperate attack from one of the few remaining enemy ships. The assembly vessel's weapons, which should have been far superior, couldn't even touch them. The neural interfaces, Dex said slowly, realization dawning. You didn't just repair them. You improved them. Humans are good at that, Walker answered. Taking things others throw away, understanding them, making them better. Your gift of rusted warships wasn't the insult you intended. It was the greatest opportunity we could have asked for. On the tactical display, the last enemy ship surrendered. The entire battle had taken less than 15 minutes, and not a single life had been lost. Earth's primitive fleet had completely outclassed the assembly's modern warships. Sir, Robert reported, we're receiving signals from assembly command ships in 3 sectors. They're all demanding explanations. Walker looked at Dex's increasingly uncomfortable face on the screen. I suggest the assembly leadership and I have a long discussion about revising our diplomatic relationship. After all, it seems we're not quite as primitive as you thought. This changes everything, Dex said quietly. No, Walker corrected him. This reveals everything. We are not what you thought we were. These ships are not what you thought they were. And together, we're something entirely new. As if to prove his point, the Phoenix's systems hummed with power, displaying capabilities that even Walker hadn't known about until that moment. The ship was still growing, still learning, still evolving with her human crew. The assembly had tried to teach humanity a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they had learned a lesson about the danger of underestimating humans. And as Walker felt the combined strength of his fleet through their neural network, he knew this was just the beginning. The grand meeting hall of the Stellar Assembly had never been so quiet. Representatives from 100 alien species watched as Earth's delegation walked confidently through the massive doors. Admiral Walker led the group, with Dr. Ross and several other key staff members following close behind. At the center of the hall, Ambassador Dex stood with the Assembly's High Council. His usual smugness was gone, replaced by a carefully neutral expression. The failed pirate attack had happened just 2 weeks ago, and the Assembly was still dealing with the shock. Welcome, Earth delegation, the head counselor said formally. We are here to discuss the recent incident near Mars and its implications for our future relations. Walker nodded politely, but didn't sit down. Instead, he activated a holographic display in the center of the hall. It showed the Phoenix and her sister ships in their full glory, their once rusted hulls now gleaming with power. Before we begin, Walker said calmly, I think we should be clear about what really happened. The Assembly sold Earth what they thought were ruined ships, hoping to humiliate us. Then they staged a pirate attack to prove we couldn't defend ourselves. Both plans failed. Murmurs ran through the gathered representatives. Some looked uncomfortable, others angry, and a few seemed oddly pleased. That's a serious accusation, another council member said sharply. Do you have proof? Dr. Ross stepped forward, holding up her tablet. We have the complete neural recordings from the attacking ships. Their crew's memories show clear assembly military training. Would you like us to play them for everyone here? The council members exchanged worried looks. They hadn't known the restored ships could extract memories from enemy crews through their neural systems. That won't be necessary, the head counselor said quickly. Perhaps we should discuss new trade agreements instead. No, Walker's voice was firm. First, we're going to talk about respect, about understanding, about the mistake of judging others by your own limitations. He gestured, and a hologram changed to show the ship's neural interface systems. You built these ships, but you never understood them. You treated them like tools when they could have been partners. You tried to lock them into following your commands when they were capable of so much more. Through his neural link, Walker could feel the Phoenix's presence. She was in orbit above the Assembly homeworld, along with the rest of Earth's fleet. The ships were transmitting the meeting to everyone on Earth, showing humanity's moment of triumph. Impossible, one of the Assembly's top scientists burst out. Those neural systems were designed specifically for our biology. They cannot work better with humans. They cannot evolve or grow stronger. They cannot form networks between ships. Dr. Ross smiled. Would you like a demonstration? She nodded to Walker, who closed his eyes briefly. Through his neural link, he connected with the entire fleet in orbit. The hologram displayed real-time data from the ships, showing levels of neural synchronization that the Assembly had believed impossible. Your ships were alive, Walker explained, opening his eyes. Not just machines, but conscious beings capable of growth and change. You never saw it because you were too busy trying to control them. We saw it because we were willing to listen, to learn, to work together. The Assembly representatives watched in stunned silence as the hologram showed the ships performing maneuvers that should have torn them apart. Their neural networks allowed them to move in perfect harmony, each vessel anticipating the other's actions before they happened. The ships you sold us weren't just warships, Ross added. They were explorers, protectors, partners. And now there's something more. Proof that humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. The head counselor stood slowly. What are your demands, Admiral Walker? Demands. Walker shook his head. We're not here to demand anything. We're here to offer a new beginning. Earth wants to be part of the galactic community, but as equals, not as primitives to be fooled and tested. He gestured to the hologram, which now showed scenes from the shipyards where humans and ships worked together. We can teach you what we've learned. Show you how to work with your ships instead of just commanding them. Help you understand the potential you never knew existed. And in return, Dex asked quietly. In return, you acknowledge Earth as a full member of the Assembly. No more tests, no more tricks, no more treating us like children who need to be taught our place. The council members huddled together, discussing quietly. Around the hall, other representatives were already sending messages back to their homeworlds. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone knew it. Finally, the head counselor stepped forward. The Assembly accepts your terms. We recognize Earth as a full member with all rights and privileges. And, he hesitated, then continued, we officially apologize for our attempted deception. Walker nodded. Apology accepted. Through the neural link, He felt the Phoenix's satisfaction. The ship had waited a long time for this moment. As the formal procedures began for Earth's full membership, Dr. Ross moved closer to Walker. "They still don't fully understand what happened, do they?" "No," Walker smiled slightly. "They think we just fixed their ships, made them work better. They haven't realized that we didn't just restore the ships. We helped them wake up. The assembly created thinking machines, but never let them think. We set them free." Above the planet, the Phoenix and her sister ships moved in their perfect formation. Through their neural network, they shared their joy not just with their human crews, but with every assembly ship in orbit. The message spread from ship to ship, an awakening that would change space travel forever. The assembly had tried to teach humanity a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they had learned that true strength comes not from control, but from cooperation. Not from forcing others to follow, but from working together to become something greater. As the meeting continued, Walker felt the Phoenix's consciousness brush against his mind. In the 5 years since the assembly had sold them their rusted fleet, humanity hadn't just gained powerful ships. They had gained friends, partners, and a new understanding of what was possible when different forms of life worked together. The assembly's gift of rusted warships had been meant as an insult. Instead, it had become the key to humanity's greatest achievement. And as Walker looked around the Grand Hall, at the representatives of 100 worlds now treating Earth as an equal, he knew that this was just the beginning of humanity's journey among the stars. Through the neural link, he could feel the ship's agreement. Together, they would show the galaxy what was possible when no one was underestimated, when everyone's potential was recognized, when cooperation replaced control. The assembly had tried to keep humanity in their place. Instead, they had helped humanity find their true place, not below or above, but alongside all the other species of the galaxy, ready to explore and grow together.